Excellent. Brendon Welsh, welcome to Tile and Connect podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, mate.
You're very welcome. We always love to start these episodes. This is my second visual episode, which is the first one actually I felt went pretty smoothly, but this is our second one and loving this and really putting me outside of my comfort zone. So we love to start our episodes with finding out a little bit more about our guests and their backgrounds and where they're currently working. So mate, please, the floor is yours. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yep. So my journey kind of started, I finished high school, went straight into uni. I studied a Bachelor of Audio Production, which a lot of people think is a different way to go, which it was good fun. I had fun. Obviously didn't stay in that industry, but it was a good time. Finished that 2.5 years, I think I did that for. And I worked at Pizza Hut, Cura Pizza Hut, while I was there as a shift manager while I was through uni and school. And then jumped into my first full-time job was actually concreting. So I was a concrete labourer for a company making barrier walls inside tunnels, which was super exciting, to say the least.
Yeah.
From there, I went to a call centre working for the tax office, believe it or not. Just taking inbound calls, helping people set up their MyGov accounts, things like that. This was early MyGov days.
Wow.
I did that for about 6 months, I think. And then I started working at Neumann Steel, which was my first, let's say, career. I started on the factory floor on night shift, bending and cutting Rio. Did that for about a year and then just started moving my way up through the ranks there. I worked there for 7 years, I think, almost 7 years. As a resi estimator, commercial estimator, and then into Rio scheduling. While I was a Rio scheduler, they actually asked me to help them set up their social media pages. So this is where the whole marketing thing came about. So
yeah.
I had no experience in marketing, but I was the young guy in the office that understood technology and helped with technology. And I was the IT support for a lot of the guys there. They were a lot older, and less technological illiterate, I think is the word.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. Why not? So they came to me for social media. So I started up some social media pages and just started dabbling in it a little bit, posting some projects for the company while I was doing my actual job. And then they redid their website and wanted somebody to manage that. So then it started becoming too much for me to do while I was doing my actual job, because I was just doing it on the side for them. So I just mentioned that they should hire somebody in marketing to do it. And then they offered me the position to keep running with it. So at this point, I had no marketing experience, nothing. I knew nothing. So all I did was I learned everything myself from reading, listening, podcasts, watching videos on YouTube. But most importantly, what I did was I just tried things. I just did it and see what happens, measure the results and try again and just keep doing that. So I did that with Newman's for about 2 years. Obviously, my skills considerably got a lot better throughout those 2 years. Basically took a company that had been around for 50 years, had no marketing department for the last 10 years before that, and started a marketing department for them and started to grow their brand, I guess. Then I met Tim, who's obviously the owner of Lauxes Grates.
Yeah.
You had him on earlier, one of the earlier episodes.
Yeah, so lucky enough to have me.
Yeah. So I met him a few times at different networking events. And then at one of the events, he just mentioned that they had an opening in their marketing department. Maybe I should apply. So I did. And obviously that went well because I got the job. And here we are, just over a year later. So I've been with Lauxes for a year now. So my job here is I'm the relationships division leader. So basically heading up the division of marketing that's responsible for all our events, all our sponsorships, our PR, product releases, all those kind of things. So in the last year, we've had a lot to do with Titans. Obviously, we sponsored the Titans. We had our gold release. That was my first product release. That went really well for the company. And then many other things. But yeah, so it's been a pretty eventful year. So yeah, so that's me. I've been in marketing now for just over 3 years.
Yep.
And just loving it.
That's awesome, man. Thanks so much for sharing. What a really cool journey. I love the part where, you know, sort of you just deep dived into the whole marketing thing at Newman's, and you just taught yourself, so you self-taught, podcast, reading stuff online, whether it be HubSpot or, there's so many different portals out there to find the information.
HubSpot has the best blog, I tell you.
Yeah.
I've learned so much off HubSpot's blog.
Yeah, exactly. You and I both. I've spent the last couple of years when I was in Melbourne educating myself around marketing and everything website orientated and EDMs and social media, and the list goes on. But it's the world we live in today is so different compared to 15, 20 years ago. You can turn your computer on and get an answer in 5 seconds.
Oh, mate, and the amount of time it takes to develop a course for something, it takes too long. Marketing moves too quick. So it's just easier just to learn online. It's going to be more current information. Yeah,
exactly. And that begs a question, right? Like, what is the future of learning at TAFEs and unis and with this sort of stuff? I mean, where do they go? Particularly with COVID, you saw the amount of people that lost their jobs at the different universities and TAFEs around Australia. I don't know what the answer is, but I imagine that these institutions would be thinking, well, how do we compete? How do we compete with online? How do we offer courses that are relevant? When someone can just train themselves if they have the motivation and drive to do it.
Yeah, I think they need to double down on the industries that need to have formal education and just stick to what they're good at, and just leave alone those things that can be easier done online. And I think that's where I would take it if I was them. But
absolutely. Yeah, super cool. Well, mate, look, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I wanted to get you on today. You reached out to my SOS, as I would call it, on a number of different social platforms. And obviously what I was doing was canvassing people with marketing experience to come on the show. And I'm sure, this is just one episode but of many, and I'm sure that in the future there'll be opportunities for us to get on and do another segment. So it was really about a lot of the tradies and our audience that listen provide feedback on a regular basis, and we use that feedback to sort of shape these shows and episodes to get on, and connect with the best industry people. And a lot of the questions that were coming in were sort of marketing based, and I'd sort of built the framework around that for us today. So I might just get into it and ask a few questions and see what sort of information you can share with the audience that will help their business. As you know, a lot of the construction trades are sole traders, generally speaking, but there's other people out there as well. So I suppose the first question for me would be, it's sort of I suppose find out a little bit more about what sort of some of the critical or essential aspects of marketing that a sole trader should consider when they're looking at marketing their business.
Yep. So with marketing, in my opinion, it's really two pronged. So you've got your short-term marketing, which is your sales, things like that. And then the other side of it is your brand marketing. So that's your more longer term thing.
Yeah, right.
For a lot of sole traders, I feel like brand marketing is where it's at. Unless you really need to boost your sales, like say it's come around just after Christmas, say things are a bit slow, then maybe that's some time where you do some short-term marketing. But brand marketing is really where it's at. That's the long game. That's where your opportunity is going to come. So your brand is what people will think and say about you behind your back.
Yeah, right.
It's your personality. It's especially for sole traders, because they are the brand. Like there's no. And
does reputation play a big part in that? Is that sort of in that same bucket?
Yeah, I would say reputation, brand, they're hand in hand. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah,
especially with a sole trader, because there's no one else representing the brand except for them. So yeah, 100%. Sorry, you throw me off track a bit.
Yeah, sorry. It's all good.
No, what I was saying was, you need to be authentic with your brand, because if you're inauthentic, people can just smell that a mile away. Yeah. And if you're doing it yourself, you want it to be your personality, because then you don't need to fake all the time. You just want to be yourself so that you can do it consistently, and you don't need to worry about trying to be this other person all the time. You want to be your authentic self. And you also then you're going to attract the customers that are attracted to your personality. So you're ultimately going to have a better time in business anyway. So that's really what you need to think about, I think, as a sole trader for your brand marketing. And then in terms of getting that brand marketing out there, you just need to start telling your story.
Yeah.
So whether that's through pictures, video, whatever your choice of thing is, ultimately, if you do everything, that's best. But you need to just start somewhere and telling your story and getting that brand out there so that people can relate to you and ultimately become a customer.
Yeah. And look, there's so many different social media platforms now for people to tell their story. I mean, I think it probably started I wouldn't say started pre-Facebook, but Facebook was obviously one of the very first platforms that was developed that's of a larger scale that people got involved in and build accounts. But, fast forward to today, we've got Instagram, there's Pinterest, you've also got TikTok. I'm not sure anyone's using Snapchat. They might be, because they could be telling their story, but I don't know how many pictures that they'd be putting on there. But then you have Twitter. If you're telling a story, depending upon whether or not it's going to be visual versus just a whole bunch of words written down. Whatever enables them to create that depth of authenticity when they're building their business. And websites. Look, what's your opinion on social media versus websites? Should they be using both or one or the other? What's sort of the best mix for a business to be involved in?
Yeah, look, with marketing, it's obviously the more you do, the better. But you've got to balance that with your time as well. So it's always important to focus on what the most valuable platform is going to be for you. Focus on that first, and then everything else, if you have time, then that comes next. But for me, especially in tiling, Instagram would have to be, I would say, the most important, because it's a visual platform, and tiling is ultimately a visual trade.
Yeah.
So it's a good place where you can show your work. You can tell your story as well. If you don't want things to be like forever, Instagram stories are a great way for you to tell your story. People can see it, and then it's gone in 24 hours time. I just think that Instagram is it also becomes a portfolio of your work as well. So you can show people what you've done in the past. They can get ideas for their future projects. It really is a good platform for tilers, I believe. And then as for a website, I do think a website is important as well. It doesn't need to be anything extensive. It can just be like a one-pager, just show that you're a professional business, because ultimately people will attribute more authority to you if you have a website with your brand name as the URL. It doesn't cost much to host a website. It's a couple of bucks a month or something. And you can just have a single page there with a contact form so people can get in contact with you, show a bit of your work. You can even link your Instagram feed to your website so that you only need to update your Instagram and then your website automatically updates.
Yeah.
And then probably as a third thing that I would recommend is Google My Business. So if you set up your Google profile, you get your Google reviews, so you can get your customers to review, and that is a massive buyer's decision journey. Like, it's out of control how much people will look before they actually make a decision, especially on something as expensive as tiling.
Yeah.
So they want to see that proof. They want to see those testimonials, and Google reviews is a good place for that. It also give you a Google Maps listing as well, which is really good for local businesses. If somebody's searching tiler near me, the only way you're going to come up in that Google search is if you have a Google My Business listing. It only takes 5 minutes to set up.
Yeah, look, I that last point on Google listings, I mean, all the points are super valuable, right? But Google My Business stuff is so important, and particularly Google reviews. I think a lot of people forget to pay attention to that because they're so caught up in the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok world, and then they go, "Oh, but I've neglected that part of it." Yeah. But today, so many people shop based upon Google reviews, and just a small experience that I had recently. My partner and I just put a contract down on another house up here in Queensland, and we're going through the motions of building and pest and all that sort of stuff. And we were given a couple of recommendations of people to choose from. I certainly won't mention any names on this show, but I looked at one, and a guy had 11 reviews, but it was 5 stars, but the reviews were like off the charts. Like, they were like, "This guy's amazing. He's an ex-builder. He knows what he's talking about." And then the other company, who, again, looked like their website looked great and they look like a really reputable company, but when you go through the Google reviews, they've got like a 2.6 star rating, and they've got a lot of ones and a lot of really bad reviews, like and in-depth reviews. So people, and of course, my buying decision habits are, I'm always going to look at the ones with the higher reviews because I want value for money.
Yeah.
If you've a tiling business out there and you don't have good Google reviews, you need to rectify that. Like, you can't just leave that there, because that will ultimately affect your business, particularly, when we're staring down the barrel of some potentially tougher times out there in the market. You need to bulletproof your business and have every single aspect of it working optimally, so that you're funneling in those customers into your backyard.
Yeah, 100%. And you're always going to get bad reviews. You can't please everybody. The main thing is that you answer them and you show that you've actually acknowledged their review and that you're trying to do something about it. I think as long as people see that, they understand that nobody will ever please everybody. As long as it's mostly positive on there, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I agree. I mean, responding to reviews is, you have to do it. It's not I'll get to it later. The minute you see that review come through on your phone, get onto it immediately and try and resolve it, because
exactly.
it can not be good long term.
It takes 5 seconds. Download the app on your phone,
Yep.
and it'll give you a notification. Go straight on there and reply to it straight away. It's not rocket science.
No, not at all. Absolutely. Cool, man. Great convo so far. I suppose one thing that I talk to tradies about quite often is how, I don't like using the word time poor, but they certainly, there is that challenge of them managing, their week, and there's obviously a quoting that they need to do to acquire work, and then there's the on-site work time, and then if they're a sole trader with no apprentices or labourers, they're all on their own. Finding the time every week to invest in marketing is really, really hard. How do they, have you got any tips for people on how they can go about tackling that? And I suppose more importantly, how often should they be doing the marketing? Like, what's sort of, is it a daily thing? Is it a weekly thing? What's the best approach?
I mean, it's business by business. Ultimately, you just need to be consistent. So you need to, when you start, you just need to pick a time. Say, I'm going to do this once a week, and I'm going to do it once a week for the next 6 months, and then we'll reevaluate from there. Or whether it's even once every 2 weeks, it doesn't matter as long as it is consistent. So ultimately, obviously, the more you do, the better. But it needs to be balanced with obviously the work that you're doing, especially if you're a sole trader. The tiling is the most important part. But just trying to, I think, if you're already there, take the photos and the videos. You don't have to post it while you're at the job. Maybe you just spend the evening. You can on Facebook, there's a post scheduler included in Facebook where you can schedule to Facebook and Instagram at the same time. I would recommend, if you're not going to do it like straight away when you're on site or whatever, take the photos and videos while you're on site. And then when you're at home later that night, schedule up a couple of posts for the next couple of weeks. And then your social media is taken care of. You don't need to do it all the time. You can schedule it in advance. Facebook gives you that opportunity. So yeah, that's what I would say. I'd say probably once a week is a good place to start.
Yeah.
If you think you can do that, but if not, as long as you're consistent, that's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the messaging is going through to your audience on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because
what they expect of you, that's what they're going to get. So if you're posting once a month, they know that you're only going to post once a month. I wouldn't recommend posting once a month, but it's better than nothing. At least you're starting to build that portfolio. You start to build the skills of it as well. And then you can build from there. As you get better at it, maybe you ramp it up to twice a month.
Yeah.
And just slowly, just as long as you're doing something, you always need to be doing something, and it needs to be consistent.
Yeah, cool. Because I mean, look, I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but I'm just throwing this out there as a topic of conversation. There's some tradies on Instagram, and obviously we follow, in my day job, we follow a lot of these guys, and we get a lot of Instagram messages back in because they're asking for different types of products and pricing and all that sort of stuff. What how do you, like, the guys on there that have got like 16, 20, 50,000 followers? I think in one case there's a guy in there that's got about 166,000 followers at the moment. Wow. What do you think? What do you think these guys have done to these guys and or girls? Because I know I have noticed a lot of the female tiling contractors that are starting to emerge from this space as well are starting to build, 2s, 3s, 4s, 7s. In some cases in America, I think there's a one over there. It's got 50 or something. What do you think system would be? Would they'd be doing daily, surely, posting daily, and
Yeah, I think so. At least daily on the weekdays, I'd say, or at least every second. A good balance is 3 times a week.
yeah,
So what I used to do when I was at Newman's, I used to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that was a good balance for me. Daily is obviously ideal. It just depends on how much content you can create. And you need to be, especially for that kind of level, you're talking 100,000 followers. You need to be creative with what you're doing. You don't want to put out something that's when you're at that level, you don't want to put out something that's below par on what you're normally doing, because your followers are expecting a certain level from you.
yeah.
But in saying that, when you're starting, don't let that stop you from putting out content. You just need to put out content and get better as you go. It doesn't, nothing needs to be, it's better done than perfect.
Oh, absolutely. I was listening to a Jay Shetty podcast a couple of months ago, and he specifically spoke about, when he first started doing podcasting and how he was striving for perfection, and he just got to a point where he was never launching anything. He's like, I kept working on these podcast episodes, and I kept working on them, and I kept working on them, but I never launched them. And he had to come over that. He needed to overcome that roadblock of I just have to launch. They're not always going to be perfect, and they're not always going to sound 100%. Great, and things are going to go wrong. But you'll never move forward if you don't just put it out there, and you learn, and as you develop and evolve, you get sharper and quicker and better, and you buy newer equipment, and you learn from your mistakes, and you know what to look for, and yeah.
100%. It's much more important to improve 1% each time than it is to get it perfect before you start, because you'll just never start.
Yeah, it's that procrastination piece, right? I'll just wait till next Monday. I'll do it then.
Yeah. Procrastination is futile.
Exactly. Cool. So on Instagram, I just want to stay parked in that space, because it really is a big part of, and I suppose in some way a lot of the guys are sort of migrating across into TikTok as well. But in Instagram, it's still a big platform, and I've spoken to some tiling contractors already on the show, and I've got some more coming on shortly. And they do talk a lot about how they are using Instagram as sort of their portfolio. So they put their work on there, and they post every job that they've got, and they can reference those jobs, so that when they're quoting new work with customers, they can actually say to the customer, here's the link to Instagram if you want to have a look at some of my work. It's got all the details in there, because clearly they're asking for permission from the owners to be able to A, put the photos up, and B, put down the listing of the maybe the suburb or whatever it might be. Do you think that's the best way for them today to show that they're sort of an expert in their field?
100%. I think so. It makes sense. You're doing marketing at the same time as you're building a portfolio to show your clients. Like it's just time saving for you ultimately.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect platform for it. And as I say with TikTok, I mean, when you get into Instagram, eventually you should be getting into Instagram Reels if you are happy to do video content. And then all you need to do with that Instagram Reels, then repost that onto TikTok, and you've got 2 platforms, the same content. You've only done the work once, but you're getting the 2 platforms running at the same time. So once you get into making content, I do think that Instagram's where to start. But then once you've started making that content, you can then take that content and repurpose it elsewhere, which I think is important as well, to take your marketing to that next level. Make sure you're ultimately, that time that you're spending making that content, you use it to its full purpose.
Yeah.
Don't just let it sit there on one platform. But that's kind of a next level kind of thing as well.
Yeah,
if you're already making that content, you might as well repurpose it as many places as possible, especially TikTok at the moment. TikTok's organic reach is out of control. You can post one video one day and get 10 views, and then the next video that you post might get 1 million views. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're in the field of trade and tiling and or stone or related fields of waterproofing and caulking. Yeah, if you're doing some really cool stuff. Some of those videos I've seen just skyrocket with likes and follows and shares. So that's don't think that it won't work.
Don't underestimate it.
Don't underestimate it. So talking about content and posting, some of the stuff that I've done in the past, I've done a little bit of outsourcing with some of the businesses that I've been involved in. Would you think that? Do you think that that's something worth exploring? So whether they, they outsource the production of their marketing to a company, or do you think it's still best handled by the person themselves? What do you think's the best way forward?
It really depends on your skill set and what you're comfortable with doing and your time that you have available. But you do need to be involved in it in some way, because otherwise you're not going to have that authentic brand, as we had talked about earlier. You're not going to
Yeah,
have that brand come through and that personality come through. You need to be involved in it some way or other, whether that's you pay somebody to come and video you and do the editing and do all that technical stuff, and you're just kind of the person behind it, or at least you're giving them guidance on what they should be, what tiles they should be filming, where they should be starting, things like that. You need to be involved in it because you're the expert, right? So
yeah,
they're the expert in social media and all that, whatever you're hiring them to do, sure, but they don't understand your business and they don't understand your brand. So you need to be involved in it some way or the other if you are going to outsource. If you've got the time and you want to be involved in it, it is a good skill to have. I think that if you're willing to put in the time and effort into doing it, the world's only going to get more social media based as we go
yeah.
forward. So it's not a bad skill to, if ever one day you want to get off the tools and do something different.
Yeah, cool. What do you and on that last piece, what do you think the future is going to look like with social media? Have you got any have you got any things that you think might occur in that land? What might evolve next? Do you think AI is the next big thing, or is it? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think might happen?
Honestly, I have no idea. It's obviously it's going to be more video centric as we go, which it already is,
Yeah,
with the explosion of TikTok and Instagram Reels. But in terms of past that, if you're in the NFT space and that kind of space, it's looking to go towards a virtual world.
mm-hmm.
How that looks in business, and man, I don't know. I don't have that kind of foresight. I wish I did, because then I'd be starting a business in it. But it's definitely coming. How it's
Yeah.
coming, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I've looked at that NFT stuff ever so briefly. I haven't deep dived into it at all, but it looks wicked. However, I mean, I think until we can actually find a way for tradies to do work more ergonomically on job sites, I think we're a fair way away from NFT, because we're still, it's such a manual. We have so many manual trades in construction, and we're so far behind the eight ball when it comes to
Yeah,
evolution of technology and automation and equipment and all that sort of stuff.
100%. It's the one good thing about being construction with this space is the whole of construction is behind that eight ball when it comes to social media, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So the good thing is you'll get to see all the other industries do it, and then you can
Yep.
just learn from them, and you'll be able to still be way ahead of everyone else.
Oh,
There's still
absolutely.
so many people that aren't even on social media, and social media is what, 10, 15, 20 years old.
I know. It's interesting you say that. I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember the name of it or who it was, but they were talking a lot about it was probably been maybe 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, or maybe a little
Yep.
bit earlier. I'm not sure, roughly around that time. And they were talking about how a lot of the footballers and sports people went on social media. They were
Mm.
like, a lot of the guys they just weren't there at whatsoever. It was like a zero space, and they're all playing their games and doing their things. And this whole podcast was around how they were helping athletes, migrate into that social media space so that they can have that persona and that brand online. And then there was all of a sudden, this massive explosion. So to not be there, particularly in trade and construction, you're not doing yourself any favors. You have to be involved in some shape or form.
100%, especially that now that everyone else is getting into it. If you're not there, then I hate to say it, but you're going to be looked at as a dinosaur in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a fact. Like it's nothing against anybody, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool, mate. A couple of final questions. What do you think, or if you can share with the audience, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're marketing their business?
I think probably one of the biggest mistakes is they stop doing their marketing when things are good.
Yeah.
So you need, as I said before, consistency is really key when coming to marketing. You don't ever see Coke stop their marketing. They never stop running ads. They're the biggest soft drink in the world. Pretty much everybody in the world knows who they are, what they're about. Everyone's seen their ads about having fun, drinking a Coke, things like that. But they will never stop their marketing, because if they do, they'll lose their market share to another company, probably Pepsi.
Yeah.
And people will forget what they're about,
Yeah.
because people have short memories. People need constant reminding about things. So doesn't matter what size business you are, doesn't matter how good things are going for you. Right now, if they're good, that's the time to get into marketing and double down on it.
Cool.
Most big companies that are successful in marketing, when things are good for them, they will spend more on marketing, because that's when they've got the money to do it.
Right. So, I mean, if I was a really successful tiling contractor and, I just, was finding that I was getting a lot of work coming in, and the regularity of what I was doing online with my social media marketing or my website marketing, perhaps just back it off a little bit, rather than try and, go at 100 miles an hour, maybe just back it off to at least once a week to try and keep that presence, that branding going.
Yeah, 100%. And it just needs to be, it becomes about just keeping that pipeline strong, obviously. So the more branding that you're doing, the more work that's going to be coming to you. And then you never have to think about trying to find work ultimately ever. Yeah. Because it's just going to keep coming on a nice strip. And maybe it becomes too much. You just need to readjust a little bit. Instead of going 3 times a week, you drop back to once a week. Just as long as it's consistent. I mean, if anybody takes anything out of today, please let it be consistency.
Yeah, consistency is key. Yeah, don't stop. Start and then just keep going.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. You can always readjust the volume, but it just needs to be consistent.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool, Brendon. That's the end of my questions today. What I would like to ask though is if any of the audience out there would love to connect in with you directly, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and to find you?
Probably LinkedIn is the best. Just search for my name, Brendon Welsh, on LinkedIn.
Yeah. We didn't talk about LinkedIn today. Sorry, forgot all about that.
No, we didn't talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is massive too. Probably less so for a tiling contractor and more so for a professional.
Yep.
But it is massive in that professional space.
Yep.
If you're a tiling contractor that's looking to get work from large developers and things like that, then yes, LinkedIn is the place to be.
Yep.
If your audience is a professional audience, you should be on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely that networking hub for anybody trying to develop and evolve their business from maybe a sole trader into a small to medium SME enterprise and hire a lot of blokes and connecting with developers and people of influence that are in that space. Yeah. Absolutely,
100%, 100%. LinkedIn is massive, and the opportunities on there. Everyone is super supportive and wants to help everyone out on there, that I've found on LinkedIn anyway. So even if you're not trying to market your business to professionals, you may find that there's some help on there for other things. You might find a marketing professional on there that can help you with your business. You might find a recruiting person on there. You just never know what opportunities lie in the world of LinkedIn, or in the world of everywhere. But LinkedIn is it's the ultimate networking platform.
Yeah, I agree. Well, mate, if you find any marketing people, let me know. I'm chasing one. I've been for 12 months. It's like a unicorn at the moment. All the good ones are taken. So, well, that's awesome. I'll definitely direct people to LinkedIn to connect in with you directly, and we'll absolutely put that in the show notes as well when we load the episode and launch. Brendon Welsh, really appreciate you're from Lauxes Grates. Really appreciate you being with us today, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, mate. If I don't talk to you again, and thanks for being on the show.
All right, it's a pleasure, mate. Thanks for the chat.
Hey, thank you. Take care, eh?
Cheers, mate. I'll catch you later.
Bye.